happy holiday to you there at home or on the road or at work like me. Good morning, everyone. It's a brand new week. It's a Monday, even though it's a public holiday back here in Nigeria. I'm Edie John Mekwa, and this is 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations. That's what we do on Business Morning. We start as usual from the global space to tell you what's going on right there. We can say that from the oil prices slipped, but we're on track for the first weekly gain in 3 weeks after, of course, President Trump's what he has done, to that space. Let's look at the numbers for this morning. It's gone up to $66. 29 cents, 0.27% down, and WTI $64.43 a barrel after it also dropped 0.23%. And of course, we know that Saudi Arabia has cut. There's also the China market, the demand which we see. The jobs market also from the United States, we saw 139,000 jobs created, more than expected. All of those are feeding into what's going on in the price of oil at this time. Let's jump over from there and come to Lagos. Well, over the weekend, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu did that 3 new lines of the rail, talking about improving the rail transportation in Lagos from Lagos to other states. We saw Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu take up that. But before we get there, let's talk to you about what's going on in the oil space now with the president, the national president of Petroan, Dr. Billy Harris. He joins us virtually. Dr. Billy Harris, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm speaking from Bonny, River State.
Great, and we see your network is looking really good. We hope it stays that way to the end of the program. Well, we have to first of all say happy holiday to you because it's a holiday in Nigeria.
Thank you. I wish everybody a happy holiday too. I wish you, especially those of you in channels, a very happy holiday, and Nigeria also a happy holiday. In spite of the times, we should enjoy our lives and hope for the best.
So let's start from the last statement from you was talking about the Petroleum NG, the website. Tell us about that and the relevance.
Petroan, as you know, is always working to be innovative and bring result-oriented solutions, to the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. First of all, we started with looking to make sure that we have data that should guide our decisions and processes, and Petroan is leading in that and trying to make sure that we have members effectively and digitally, stored for all members and where we are, so we know what our members are doing and where they are. We also went ahead to design what is called the Primis. We started with the 3P petroleum product passport that will help us to be able to track products from loading, and then that has now become Primis. Primis is a petroleum price intelligence monitoring and insurance system that is going to help the industry to be stable. But before we got to that, we were always having difficulties in knowing what pricing should be in various depots and across the country, what product should be or what it is costing. So now Petroan is partnering with Petroleum Pricing NG, one of our very close allies that we have now tied up at the north way to ensure that we effectively look at what prices are, as in real time. What is prices in Dangote? What's prices in Port Harcourt Refinery? What's the prices in Matrix? What's the prices in Warri, Calabar? Anywhere that there is a petroleum product being done. So this is going to help our members to make the effective decisions on where to buy, and also help the public so that you don't start guessing. What did they buy the product from? Where are they going to sell it? How much will they sell it? So this is the first step. The next step will be data gathering on actual sizes of consumption. And then also that will help us to move on to what we should be looking at in terms of logistics that will help us. Because right on that same platform, you can hire tankers, you can buy products, you can pay products. We're going to ultimately put a digital platform where you can even bank right on the platform. And that's will be when we believe that the industry will be much more stable and organized. And I think that some of these surprises in prices changing up and down may then be given a leave so Nigerians can be able to do business more effectively.
Yeah, but Dr. Belize, are you saying that we should expect volatility in the price of petrol and other petroleum products? Because, I mean, if you say now people know where to buy, how much it costs, it suggests that the price will be changing often.
Well, the truth is we need to wake up and smell the coffee. We should not be just, assuming how this industry is going to, operate from an armchair projection point of view. We want information, real-time data to be able to analyze how the industry should be. As far as volatility of price is concerned, that is going to be consistent, and that's what the removal of subsidy will actually encourage, that the prices will be moving up and also moving down. It will never be static in any location, but we are hoping that at some point we should be able to have tracked the transactions well enough to be able to see what average pricing will be. So everybody will be advised. Refiners will be advised. Depot owners will be advised. Marketers will be advised. Retail outlet owners will be advised. Logistics companies, both marine and land, will be advised. Banks will also be advised, because it's important for the banks to know that when we loan money from them or they fund our projects, that there are certain price indications that should not be static. They must also, be moving with the trend. So hopefully, what Petroan is going to be doing with Petroleum Pricing NG is going to bring about this revolution, and that's why we're very excited and very happy that we've started. If you look at your platform now, we are sending you, because you're already on our mailing platform, so we send you directly daily price changes from all the depots. So that way you know, and you don't start bothering yourself to send additional resource to look out for what prices will be in a particular state or in a particular depot and all of that. So now you can get it all in one fell swoop from Petroan.
All right, thank you for that. Recently, you brought up the issue of the Port Harcourt refinery, even the worry, the refinery reapplication, and you were calling on the NNPCL to stick to the time. I wonder what's the update on that?
Well, we had requested that there should be transparency in the industry, and Petroan is very willing to give the best support to Engineer Bayo Julari and his team. And indeed, Engineer Ahmed Farouk, all of the gentlemen and ladies who supervise and regulate the industry. We want to give them the best support, being that we are very ubiquitous. We are scattered all over the country. We are small and we are many in numbers. So we are very strategic and very helpful in ensuring that the industry is stable. So we have called, for a much more effective timeline setting for everything, so that let us move away from the normal cliche of, oh, it's Nigeria. Yes, Nigeria, a great country, a powerful country, a country that can be a world power. We should begin to work towards that. And it doesn't take any rocket science for us to do that. We'll start from the small things and then grow to the big things of ensuring that policies and science and technology and management are efficient in the country. So for us, the Port Harcourt refinery temporary closure should be for the effective good and benefit of Nigerians. And that's why we insisted that the 30 days timeline set should be 30 days and shouldn't be extended. We should be able to get transparent information coming from there daily to let us know what's going on. And we try to check as much as we can, and whatever updates that we will have, we'll continue to let the management know of our thoughts first.
So perhaps
not to run to the public.
So
yes.
Perhaps, okay, I hope we are not part of the public, because I wanted to ask, since you made that call, I think it's about 2 weeks or so, if you've had any updates, we're counting down to the 30 days, if it's not expired already, if you have any update on, because Nigerians are also asking the controversy of, they are blending or they are refining at Port Harcourt, the rehabilitation is not there, it's not in existence, and things like that. I wonder if you could tell us, what you have heard or seen after that.
Well, when Petroan came out to support the government and encourage the government and NNPC to do the good work, we actually saw what was on ground. And we have recordings, we have videos, we have pictures, we have everything. Pictures that have never been shown to anybody, or videos that also have never been shared with anybody. We have them, and we can always demonstrate that we are actually walking our talk. Right now, we cannot say for sure what is the progress, but I'm in Bonny today. I'm going to Port Harcourt hopefully by Friday, and I will also visit Warri on my trip before I get back to our national headquarters in Abuja. And hopefully we should be able to meet with leaders of the industry to know exactly what is going on. As far as we are concerned, we are not critical about what the process is, but we are trying to make sure that we encourage the government, encourage NNPC, and encourage all regulatory authorities to do the best they can to make Nigerians much more stable. We are a very powerful country. And let me say this, I'm very proud of my Nigerian passport, very proud of my Nigerianness, and I will consistently be proud of this country. And I do hope that every one of us Nigerians will have that sense of pride and ensure that we contribute to making our country great, and great again.
So while we try to comfort ourselves with all of that, Dr. Harris, it does seem like, once you mention NNPCL, a lot of people just think of rot, corruption, because of, it does seem, some of this lack of transparency, lack of information. The public is told that the refinery is working, and from other quarters we hear it's just blending. And then we cannot really, even an industry person like you, cannot tell us exactly what's going on with our refinery, what to expect. So how do we win the trust of the people? We've been promised for about 2 years now that we'll see NNPCL list. That will also bring some kind of transparency into the system. We haven't seen that. Yes, we have a new management, but what's the difference?
Well, I'll tell you what, I do not blame any Nigerian for thinking that way, because if I want people to know who I am, I'll have to act and walk the way I truly want to be known. And if my actions are not as clear and as transparent, then of course people are want to make their own suppositions and do projections and speculations about me. So NNPC has created that kind of environment where it's now difficult for the public to trust them with everything. And I think it will be in the best interest, not just of the management, but of Nigeria, that mindset should be changed by the current management. Engineer Ojulari is coming from the private sector, a very well-organized private sector, because it's coming from a Shell background. So I believe that him and his team, and Mr. Kida is also coming from Total. So these are people that have gone through a very regulated and very efficient system. And I think that they should bring the experience to bear in how the Nigerian oil industry should be. And NNPC should right away spring up from his doldrum and raise his head up and say, okay, well, so many years ago we didn't do it right, but now we want to do it right. And I think that there is no time that is better than doing that. So again, let us give our best support and our valuable thoughts and prayers to the Engineer Ojulari-led team, that they will not in any way fall into this same assumptive, perception of Nigerians, that they came, they saw, and they changed the narrative.
Yeah, I guess, would you say it's too early to demand of anything of the Engineer Ojulari's team?
Yeah, our demand is simple, that transparency should be key. The production of crude oil should be increased. we should be able to do as much as possible to make sure that the host communities of the Niger Delta are friendly, and everywhere else that crude oil is being mined in the north, in the mid, in the north central, in the Niger Delta, communities should work very closely and encourage the businesses to come in. Today we are seeing Shell divesting, Mobil divesting. For me, it's a very happy thing, and I'm happy Nigerian companies are able to take up that challenge and take those assets and turn them into valuable, growth sectors for Nigeria. So, other than that, we also, want to, appeal that there should be a very special crude oil production plan for the local refineries. Because with the number of refineries coming up in Nigeria, and hopefully with NNPC working hard to make the refineries work, with BUA, with Azikel, with all the different refineries coming, Nigeria should be a refining hub where we should then be earning additional foreign exchange by exporting refined petroleum products. So we are looking at a situation where they should aim to keep 3 million barrels of Nigerian crude oil for refining in country. And so regardless of what has happened yesteryears, where we hear that most of the crude oil that have not been even mined have been sold ahead for 5 years, the errors could be made. And I think it takes people to see those errors and be able to ensure that they are corrected. So I think that this management should start the revamping process, showing Nigerians the value and capacity that we have as a country to stand on our own and be the men and women that we should be. Because we are leaders. Nigerians are leaders everywhere in the world. So I don't know why we cannot lead our own country and lead our country very well. I think that this management should be able to show that work. And that's just a simple demand we have made.
Yeah, Dr. Harris, you mentioned the issue of crude, and we know that, Dangote has raised the alarm a lot of times. I had to import and all of that. But we've been celebrating the discovery of new assets and new wells and all of that. Can we expect that with these new discoveries and some of the action, by some of the oil companies, that our crude will increase while also dealing with the issue of theft?
Well, you see, for me as an individual, we came up with the idea of discouraging marketing of illegally refined product in this country by our premise and petroleum product passport technology. And that in itself could have helped in mitigating the theft, because then the only place that will be left to sell stolen crude oil will be in the international waters, which is then easy to call on the Navy and call on the international security agencies to be able to help us to track what's going on. As far as I know, every refinery should work hard to attach certain fields to them. Every refinery, whether it's Dangote or it's Azikel or it's BUA, there should be a way to talk with the Nigerian upstream led by Mr. Kumolafe, a great Nigerian, also doing such a very wonderful work. Also with the authority chief, Engineer Ahmed Farouk, with the NNPC leadership of Engineer Bayo Ojulari, the three of them should be able to work to ensure that we have a new dawn in Nigeria and make our president proud, make our country proud, make Nigerians become confident again as we used to be in the 70s. So I think it's just a matter of the upstream, the midstream and downstream and NNPC management itself having a meeting and get together to think out of the box on how we should be able to produce crude oil for our refineries so that nobody will have a reason to shout. There's really no reason for anybody to shout. In our opinion, we should look for solutions at all times.
Dr. Harris, thank you so much for your time, the National President of Petroan.
Thank you so very much for having us here.
Great. All right, now just let's give you a bit of some stories making the rounds. We start from Nigeria's FX inflows. We saw an improvement. Inflows into Nigeria surged by 62% month on month. That's for the month of May. 5.96 billion came in in May, and that helped the appreciation of the naira. So we saw the naira, even though it started about 1,600, closed the month of May at about 1,551 on the back of those increased confidence and strong domestic participation in the FX market. Data from FMDQ shows that sharp rise in total inflows rose from 3.67 billion in April, was largely driven by significant uptick in contributions from local sources. That local sources accounted for 83.2% of total inflow. Domestic forex supply hit a 6-year high, rising by 64.2%. Now, inflows from exporters and importers soared also to 3.11 billion, and that's a sharp increase from 655.7 million that was recorded in April. That's a huge increase that we've seen there. Non-bank corporates contributed $1.1 billion in May compared to $1 billion the previous month. Individual inflows climbed to 91.4 million from 15.1 million in the previous month. However, inflows from the Central Bank of Nigeria moderated to 649.8 million from 1.35 billion in the prior month. Now, on the foreign front, inflows rose by 51.7% to 997.6 million. That's the highest in 3 months, reflecting improved confidence among offshore investors amid relatively calmer global macroeconomic environments. Then the FPI's foreign portfolio investments went up 61.3% to $880.8 million, while other corporate inflows increased by 10% to $83.9 million. However, foreign direct investment dipped marginally 6.3%, beg your pardon, to $32.9 billion. Well, analysts expect that renewed interest from foreign investors partly hinged on the CBN's recent monetary tightening and sustained OMO auctions, which have continued to offer attractive fields. Now, there's a bit of warning on this. We know that President Trump is working on that remittances tax, which could affect Nigeria's diaspora remittances into the country. So if we see a dip in this in the next month, I guess we can just remember that it's coming from President Donald Trump. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, has highlighted the strategic role of comprehensive land reforms in driving Nigeria's economic transformation, particularly in job creation, urban renewal, and enhanced revenue generation at a subnational level. Speaking during a recent high-level strategic dialogue with a delegation from the United Nations Human Settlements Program, that's UN Habitat, Edun emphasized that modernizing Nigeria's urban development framework through land tilting, spatial planning, and documentation is essential to attracting investment and fostering public-private partnerships. UN Habitat commends the Nigerian government's renewed commitment to the Nigeria Land Tilting and Documentation Program, a flagship initiative designed to enhance land tenure security, expand the national tax base, and unlock private capital across critical sectors, including real estate, agriculture, and logistics. Now, the federal government, in collaboration with the World Bank funded Agroclimatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscape Project, is partnering with the Food and Agriculture Organization to restore 350,000 hectares of land that were degraded in the 19 northern states to boost food production. Speaking on the project, which involves the use of the half-moon technique to plant trees, the FAO country representative says that it will conserve 1,000 liters of water per catchment in addition to addressing herders grazing into farmlands.
Officials from the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and World Bank Accresal-funded project arrived the Akperan Oshi Polytechnic Boko, Benue State, as one of the beneficiaries of the Land Degradation Recovery Program in northern Nigeria. They were received by the chairman of the governing council of the institution. The team immediately proceeds to the project site for demonstration by participants from the 19 northern states and the FCT. The The federal government, under the World Bank funded Agro-Climatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscape project, is partnering with the Food and Agricultural Organization to deploy the half-moon technique to restore over 350,000 hectares of degraded farmlands.
We are supporting them to restore 350,000 hectares of the land across the 19 states. So what we are doing in Benue today, as you can see, is to deploy innovations, is to deploy technology on how land can be restored easily.
After the demonstration by the participating states and a tour of the water, irrigation, greenhouse and animal husbandry projects, the Crystal Tax team lead speaks on the improvement in yield by Benue farmers since their intervention.
What we have seen is commendable, and we have brought other states to come and learn.
The visiting team then holds a town hall meeting with the management and students of the institution to educate them on the sustainability of the project. The institution makes some requests, but the National Project Coordinator, Arthur Crizel, urges the institution to project the investments and see how much help they will get, just as the Benue State government tasked host communities to own the project.
We are calling on ACRESA, FAA, AO, and His Excellency to help us again in these IGR streams. This is because we already have the facilities to produce 1,000 and even up to 5,000 birds ahead of us. It is lying fallow because we do not have the seed monies.
For us, as a project, we will continue to focus on those interventions that speaks to community desires and gaps that will uplift our poor people from poverty.
The project is a project that we need to own, we need to protect. We need to look towards how to sustain the project, that it will be of benefit.
Climate change and human activities of indiscriminate tree felling is contributing to arable land degradation across northern Nigeria, but the half-moon technique deployed by FAO and Crizel would see over 350,000 hectares of land restored, as done in Adamawa State already.
Let's take a break now on the program. When we come back, we'll look at our marine, that ministry created by President Bola Tinubu. What's been happening right there? We'll have a conversation on that after the break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. Still watching Business Morning right here on Channels Television. And yes, the X-ray of President Bola Tinubu's administration 2 years into it is still on, especially as we count down to June 12th. That's on Thursday. Now, one of the things that President Bola Tinubu will be remembered for is the creation of the marine and blue economy. But how effective can we say that creation has been almost 2 years after it was created in August, some months after the administration started off? Well, we have a player in that industry right here in the studio. Is Irogama Ogbeifun. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Stars Investments Company. Irogama, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So, for us outside your sector, we are wondering, so a ministry has been created, so what? So, what has been happening? What difference has that made?
Once again, thank you for having me, and I think that this is such a good conversation to have, and a good time too, 2 years later. Before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, the creation of a ministry such as the Marine and the Blue Economy one was one that the industry had pushed for years, because we felt ignored. We felt that the potentials of the maritime sector was not being galvanized, it wasn't being reached, it wasn't even being, stimulated. So with the emergence of this ministry, what we're seeing now is a minister that is completely devoted, dedicated and committed to the advancement of the sector. So we're now seeing that we have inroads into giving feedback, into stakeholder engagements, and you're having a minister that is forming policies, actionable policies, intervening, and then driving these policies through the various agencies that are under his portfolio. And for us, we see it as a wonderful, we saw it as a wonderful development, and private sector has come around the minister and the ministry to work hand in hand to see how we actually derive full benefit from the existence of this ministry.
And about 2 years down the line, has the expectation been met?
Yes, one of the major things, so I'm a ship owner. We have a company that operates 11 ships in the energy industry, providing offshore support vessels to oil companies. And one of the major things that he has achieved for us was the recent removal of war risk insurance premiums. This was a mandatory insurance premium that was placed on any vessel operating within the Gulf of Guinea due to the incessant piracy attacks. But this ministry has really implemented the Deep Blue project, ensuring that it sustained its benefits, and now we are reaping that benefit by seeing that war risk insurance premium being taken off. Also recently, they just announced the disbursement of the CVFF. This is a major win.
The cabotage.
The cabotage vessel finance fund. This is a major win.
And that's getting
for
to the people.
It is going to come to the people because we have pushed.
It's going to come, or it's coming.
So we have had stakeholder engagements. We're being told how the fund is going to operate, how you're going to be able to access it, and the various vehicles that are available for beneficiaries to go, the routes to go through. And we're working hand in hand with the ministry and the agency in charge, which is NIMASA, to ensure that it is getting to beneficiaries in the most efficient way. So I must say that having the ministry, dedicated ministry, is good for us. There are many more opportunities which the minister, I expect, would take advantage of. But he is working, and we're happy.
And so, as the Navy, they're celebrating 62 years, and they won't let us hear the last of it. That security is now top notch there.
Yes. I mean, just like I said, the removal of the war risk insurance premium is just a testament to what the Navy is celebrating, because the Navy did work hand in hand with NIMASA and with other member states to ensure this security in the Gulf of Guinea. I mean, let's be honest, look at the facts. The facts will speak for itself. So it's not an emotional or sentimental feedback. It's actual facts. And that removal speaks to what the Navy should be proud of. And
so we should allow them blow their trumpet.
Let them blow their trumpet. We'll play it with them.
Okay, but a lot of people still believe that the potentials in that economy is not, I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface. We have fisheries and all of that. That is still seeing illegal fishing and all. And I mean, are these things, do they look like they're coming up, or they're still down the ladder?
So, I mean, with personal interaction and engagement with the minister, I know that specifically fisheries is something of huge importance to him. And he spent a bulk of his time last year looking into the ways that the Nigerian fisheries aspect of the maritime sector could actually re-emerge. Because just like you said, there was a time where fishery in Nigeria was people had thriving fishery businesses. And today we're seeing foreigners coming to take advantage of that sector, which means that there is opportunity there. But how do we position our Nigerian indigenous companies to come back into that space, play and thrive, and then begin to export? So if you look at some of the policies that are coming out, and I know that they're working about four different points that would stimulate fisheries. But more importantly, with the emergence of the Maritime Bank, which I'm hoping we're going to talk about, you would see, because funding becomes an issue, infrastructure, access to good infrastructure becomes an issue, because if you're going to do that, then you're buying these trawlers. They're not cheap, right? You have to maintain them, you have to have a jetty, you have to have cold room, all the ecosystem that supports the fishery industry. So I think that the minister has done sufficient research, and what we as industry are expecting is that we begin to see implementation happen in that sector. I'm very, very interested in fisheries, and I'm quite excited to see him really go deeper and see how we revive that, because foreigners are taking advantage. That means that
I want to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Maritime Bank. That's an interesting thing that I also noticed recently. But when we talk about foreigners are taking it, I don't understand. They're not ghosts. We do have regulators that are supposed to be watching these space. So what's really happening? And then, of course, I've had this conversation before, and they say, it's really expensive to get, but these foreigners are getting it, and they're getting these fishes, and they're getting it out. Just like we talk about our crude being stolen. And they're not just, so what from your perspective is really going, is there compromise in the system, for instance? Because even if we have the funding, if the leakages are still there, we're still going to have the illegal fishermen doing what they're doing.
So I think that it's really looking at the structure is it still regulated as it used to be? Maybe because it began to sort of die down. Wasn't thriving. That part of the sector wasn't thriving as much. So I think that it's a bit unregulated. So someone could just go like on a fishing boat, and then they're just taking fish, and it's really good species of fish that they could export and earn a lot of foreign exchange for. So now that we have and still back to not having a dedicated ministry who's saying that I'm responsible for this, I'm going to be looking into all these issues, I'm going to ensure that the right frameworks are there, but legal, how do we prosecute? What does the law say about, which areas are out of bounds, who can trade there, things like that. And that's what having a minister who this is all he does for the sector, because then he can look at these things, develop them, and also implement them. So like I said, I know he spent a lot of time last year trying to really understand the sector, that part of the sector, and we're looking forward to implementation. And private sector needs to also match that energy, because he can do all these things, but if private sector doesn't show up to say, look, we're ready to take advantage of the opportunities, we're still going to see foreign players who come in and take advantage of the opportunities. So yes, he can put the policy framework in place, he can have the financing structures in place, fiscals that favor, but then private sector have to match the energy as well.
Yeah, private sector is moved by incentives. So I think if there are incentives,
correct,
and there's insurance of investment, then private sector will move in. Everybody wants to make money.
Enabling business environment. So that's a challenge for the minister.
So that's the minister.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that's something that I hope he's watching, that he takes this away, and whichever agency is responsible for regulating the waterways in this regard, in terms of this economic regard, is able to see how do we really harness. Because there were players, very strong players, and there still remain some, but like you said, it's driven by incentives. So if there is the right enabling environment, why won't we emerge? We will emerge.
And that's a maritime bank.
Yes. So
what where's the funding supposed to come from? How is it supposed to work? How are we sure that, it will be driven right?
So first of all, let's even see, because I listened to a few news clips, some experts speaking around the emergence of this bank, or why do we need another development bank? We've had so many regional banks, and many of them haven't done so well, and etc. and etc. But then, as a player in the maritime sector, I'm saying a lot of the financial institutions, especially in this region, do not really have an understanding of what it takes to finance a maritime project, whether it's a shipyard, whether it's even a ship acquisition project, because it's expensive. So first of all, for that kind of transaction, it needs to be long tenured. And most of the banks here are obviously very conservative. They're not going to give you that kind of tenor. So even just understanding the dynamics of such a transaction, the appetite for it, we find very low. So that's why a lot of the Nigerian indigenous companies struggle, right, against their foreign counterparts who are able to access funding at lower interest rates, etc. So having a development bank that is focused on our industry, for us, it's a very welcome idea if it is run right. Let's look at the person at the helm of affairs, Mr. Niron Aderoba. He has background in finance, and he also has background in maritime. So he's coming with a very, very fantastic blend of understanding and experience, an erudite professional. So our expectation, our renewed hope expectation with this appointment is that he will bring that to bear in his execution of his duties. How would he raise funds? How do development banks raise funds?
Exactly.
I know that there are member states who have, so this is not an...
They're multinational, there's AFDB, they are FXIM.
So there are member states that are part of the regional bank, or, who are also coastal countries, and they're participating in this, and so there will be a joint effort in ensuring that funds are raised for all these countries, including Nigeria, to benefit from, and then to grow the hub, the region, to really become a strong maritime hub, especially with the after taking off and creating a platform for Africa to do business with Africa. That will be done on the back of marine transportation.
Well, I'm just glad that you're happy with your minister. I hope the sentiment stays that way by this time next year.
He's a listening minister, which is good. There's nothing like having a policymaker who listens, right? Who's accessible, who you can engage with, who takes the feedback and the criticism and goes back to do something about it, who's able to admit that, okay, I don't have clarity on this, but I can listen to what you're saying, and then I can engage to see how we make it work. There's nothing as good as having that sort of avenue for collaboration. And I think that the more he continues the engagement with the private sector and stakeholders, and he's able to get the agencies to do what they're supposed to do. I mean, his ministry won the ease of, I think it was the Ease of Doing Business award shortly after his emergence as minister. So I think that he's in the right place, and we'll just keep holding his hand and ensuring that, he's going the right direction.
All right, it's a good one to get good sentiment coming from a player, to the ministry, and We certainly do hope that that continues. Thank you so much for your time, Irogama.
Thank you.
Away from the Chief Executive Officer of Stars Investments Company.
Thank you so much for having me, Ini. Thank you.
Great. All right, now the Lagos State government has unveiled 3 new train sets, each comprising 4 coaches for the Lagos Blue Rail Line corridor. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who unveiled these new trains at the Gomu train station, says the additional train set marks a significant milestone in the state's commitment to improving mass transit infrastructure.
3 new sets of trains parked at the Gomu train station to complement the already existing trains plying the Blue Rail Line. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is here alongside the Managing Director of Lagos State Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata, and some members of the State Executive Council for the unveiling of the new trains that will help improve the Blue Rail services. Governor Sanwo-Olu is excited about the new trains, walks inside to inspect the transport facility and commend the President for supporting Lagos State in improving mass transit infrastructure that will make commuting a lot easier.
The capacity for us as a state government to have embarked on this very audacious expense transaction was made possible by no other person than Mr. President, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, who about a year and a half ago, in his usual understanding of what the subnationals are doing and appreciating under his renewed hope agenda, whilst we have seen the effect of subsidy removal, whilst they've explained to us that we're going to see alternative around CNGs that would be running on buses, that you see CNGs on cars, you see electric vehicles coming up as alternative to removal of subsidy.
The governor says the second phase of the Blue Rail Line is top priority and estimates that the ongoing project will be completed by 2026.
Once the full operation is started, once the synchronization, once they can manage, because there's still a lot of things that they will need to manage, which include signalization. They will need to know the headrooms of every train. They will need to determine how long a train stays in a station before the next one comes. So all of those are calculations that the operations will need to do. But I can assure you that at the end of the day, it will turn to better journey experience, shorter time waiting in the stations, better efficiency, reduction in cost, and a better ambience of public transportation that will promise you on the Blue Line stations.
The Lagos State government also gives assurance of more rolling stock for the Red Rail Line corridor to make journey faster and reduce transportation cost for the people.
All right, from Lagos to global, that's where we're going to now with Will Ibong. Will?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're already talking the marine, and it has to do a lot with trade. If we can get that right, especially now you mentioned Donald Trump's tariffs to Nigeria, if we can actually up our export in terms of finished products, I think that we can actually make use or profit from this ministry that's been created. The ministry will do a lot to ensure that we have standardized products that can actually, compete with the U.S. And we've talked of productivity, we talk of manufacturing. We won't probably be in the situation that we are in, being the docks.
Before we start talking of exports, actually, we still import fish, some of the fish that we eat here. So imagine if our fisheries there, and we have the potential, and illegal fishing is going on, depriving the country of both food and revenue. So imagine if we just close that gap, that leakage with the fisheries. We don't, the money we spend to import fish,
we wouldn't need to do that.
And at the end of the day, we can actually package and export.
And yes, and
tariff or no tariff.
And we have companies that deal in that come up and probably get listed on the NGX. Not a lot of companies that are dealing in fish are listed. How many do you see?
Yeah, consumer goods,
Yes, not a lot in that area. So we wait to see what this ministry is going to do. We'll be keeping our eyes peeled actually. So let's see what's going on in the economic space. Global, what things to watch for this week? We have the U.S. economic data, which is expected. As always, that will set the tone for the week and global economic decisions. So we have inflation and wholesale reports coming in. CPI and PPI for May in the U.S. will be released alongside April's wholesale trade data. We are providing insights into inflation trends and supply chain dynamics. That's why we have the U.S. economic data and corporate earnings. We're also expecting that to, come in this week. We have key reports from Oracle, Adobe, VinFast, and Graham Corporation. They're expected to show differing results. So we will see that, maybe not so good, not so positive, and positive results coming from these companies in the course of the week. And we also have the Federal Reserve's insights, speeches, and market impacts. Federal officials, including Jerome Powell, is going to be speaking, offering clarity on interest rate policies and inflation management, because inflation is a thing the world is still battling. EU is still battling. We saw EU cut interest rates. But we are hoping to see more countries begin to have lower inflation, meeting their inflation targets, and be able to, drop interest rates further for businesses to be able to thrive in the country. But let's move on and see what's happening still in London this time, but US and China holding talks today. Following a call between President Trump and Xi Jinping, that's the president of China, which both sides described as positive. So it's a win-win here. Vice Premier Ho Linfeng will lead China's team, while the U.S. delegation includes Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and other top officials. We have talks have been following, the months of tariff tensions, despite the temporary truce we saw earlier last month, but we're hoping to see that continue and maybe a more fruitful conversation come out from that. Now, also, who's going to be having more talks between, we're having British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves. She's expected to meet the Chinese Vice Premier Ho Linfeng in London also this week during his UK visit. The talks come as part of broader trade discussions also involving senior U.S. officials. Now, while aimed at strengthening ties, the visit is overshadowed by concerns in the UK and U.S. over a planned Chinese embassy near London's financial district. Now, this project has faced local opposition and has raised national security concerns. We'll see how that goes. We'll have a conversation with our correspondent in London, Juliana, very soon. Moving on, we have China's rare earth exports rising 23% in May to 5,864.6 tons. And that's the highest in a year, despite export restrictions that disrupted global auto and chip production. Now, the April curbs triggered shutdowns in parts of Europe and were a focus of recent U.S.-China talks. Now, magnet exports had already dropped 50% in April. But from January to May 2025, total exports reached 24,827 tons, slightly above last year's figure, and a detailed impact report is expected on June the 20th. Now we move on to Japan, where the Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has warned that rising interest rates could push up the country's debt servicing costs and limit future government spending. He said most citizens are not used to higher rates after nearly a decade of ultra-low lending. That's what we're talking about, interest rate cuts here, and for businesses, Japan is feeling the pinch. Now, his remarks come as revised GDP figures show Japan's economy held steady in the first quarter, easing recession fears. But with inflation on the rise, expectations are growing that the Bank of Japan could raise interest rates again in July. Let's shift away from there and go to tech now. We see Getty Images, landmark copyright lawsuit against AI firm Stability AI, kicks off at London's High Court today. Now, the photo agency accuses the company of using millions of its images without permission to train its AI model, Stable Diffusion. Stability AI denies the claims, arguing the case is about innovation and fair use. How do we determine fair use? Now, the outcome could set a major legal precedent for how copyrighted content is treated in the age of artificial intelligence. Now, that's what's going on in London. We'll keep track of that and have conversations on that. But going back to the discussion, US-China, UK-China trade talks, we have our correspondent, Juliana Olayinka in London, to give us more insights about that. Good morning, Juliana. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Will.
Juliana, what's the mood in London today? This is a meeting between Finance Minister Richard Reeves and the Vice Premier and the Premier of China, Ho Linfeng. This is coming at a time when a lot of tensions in terms of trade talks and tariffs. What's happening in London regarding this? How are people receiving this particular notice of meeting between these countries? And not just the US, UK, we know the US officials are going to be part of that meeting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Will. I think the UK is obviously at the centre of a really important historical moment, which is the next chapter of pretty fraught US-China trade talks. Now, of course, this all erupted in February, and at a time, I think, levies had peaked at about 145%. But last month, there was a breather in the tensions, and now this is, as I said, the next chapter in those discussions. So we've got quite a large delegation from Washington, led by the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and as you quite rightly said, Vice Premier He Lifeng from China, he arrived in London yesterday. So what is going to happen? We're not sure. Of course, we know the body language of the White House is certainly determined by Donald Trump. But I think last week there was a discussion, a phone call between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, and it appears to be that it was quite positive. So let's see what happens over the next couple of days. Separately, as you quite rightly said, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, she will be having a further meeting, a bilateral meeting with the Vice Premier. And again, lots of these discussions are going to be around trade and, bolstering that really important relationship between Britain and and China, which has, again, also been tense over the past couple of years. But I think Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has made renewing that relationship one of his top policy priorities.
Okay, speaking of relationships, is the UK trying to, play both sides here? Saying the meeting is holding in London, are they trying to be a neutral broker here, trying to make US happy and make China happy at the same time?
I think a neutral promise broker, as you say, is certainly the position I think Britain are trying to play to. Again, I think, the UK have kind of steered clear of some of the tougher trade tariffs that have come out of Washington, including the last one is still an aluminium. And I think, Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and equally the entire cabinet want to make sure they stay on Donald Trump's right side, right? Who doesn't want to be on the right side of the man holding the kitty to the most powerful economy in the world? And again, this is a huge historical moment. All markets are going to be reacting to whatever comes out of London over the next couple of days. So yes, I think it's quite fair to say that Britain are playing a politically neutral role.
Okay, but there's the issue of the proposed Chinese embassy. The US had raised concerns about its proximity to the financial districts in the UK and raising concerns, national security concerns, proximity to data centers, and that is very key for the US, saying, the complaints already that, China is already stealing data. So what is it about this? What concerns do you see? Is this going to be a huge subject matter on the agenda, or is this just going to be something that will be rolled over?
No, I think this is a growing political row involving a pretty important, strategically important building called the Royal Mint Court, which, as you know, London quite well, is just opposite the Tower of London, and it was purchased by the Chinese government in 2018 under the then Conservative government. And in 2022, Beijing put in a bid to basically create a super Chinese embassy, which would be China's largest embassy in Europe. Now, at the time, the local council, Tower Hamlets, rejected the application. And now it basically falls in the hands of the central government, led really by the housing minister, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, and, MI6, MI5, as well as Trump's administration of flagged this as being a total security risk, particularly because there are some fiber cables connected under the building, and the Chinese have been accused of espionage throughout the years. So that is likely going to be a difficult discussion for the British government and China, because again, it's clearly one of Sir Keir Starmer's top priorities to keep China on side as well as keep Donald Trump on side, and that's a very difficult, delicate balancing act.
Just hope that this is not going to be more of optics, the meetings, and less of progress talks in terms of the action plans that are going to come out of this meeting, Juliana. Do we expect something concrete before the end of today? Just very quickly, do you think so?
Well, the meeting is going to be taking place over the next couple of days, so I don't think we're going to get much out today. But again, I think markets are, all awaiting any sort of positive sentiment, because this is a discussion of the world's two largest economies, and already we're seeing data out of China showing that these Trump tariffs are affecting their output. So yeah, let's wait and see what top line we get throughout the day, Will.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for your perspective. As always, good to have you.
Thank you, Will.
Any way to see how US, China, and the UK, settle this? Because, UK playing, I feel they're playing like the mediator here, staying in the middle, and you come to our country and, solve all the problems.
Well, we'll see. Is international politics and economy, or is at the core of it? All right, Will, thank you. That's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Morning. Business Incorporated is up next. That's 1 hour. But for now, do enjoy your holiday, and I'll see you later.